We're making a quilt in a day, and all you need is a 60-degree triangle ruler and a jelly roll. Hi, my name is Jenna, and today we're making a super duper easy beginner-friendly quilt. You can get it done in a couple of hours. And one of my goals for this New Year's was to use more specialized rulers. So I'm using the TrueCut 60-degree triangle ruler for this, and it actually makes this project so easy. For this particular quilt, we're gonna need a jelly roll, and I recommend using a jelly roll that is super colorful. And what makes this particular quilt pattern fun is having variants of color and value. And so this jelly roll is the perfect jelly roll for this, and it's kind of already broken up into different values anyway, which makes my life so much easier. For this particular quilt, I want to play a lot with colors and values, and so I want my blocks to be all the same color for the most part. So one set of blocks is going to be all of like the red, oranges, then we got the yellows, greens, blues, purples, and so forth. And we even got some pinks. In the end, all of our blocks are going to be 60-degree triangles, equilateral triangles, but to make it easier on us, we're going to start by sewing all of our strips together and then subcutting, which means out of what you sewed, you're going to subcut this triangle shape. And I'm starting with 4 jelly roll pieces that are the same color, but different variations of the same color. So I have a darker red, a dark pink, a lighter pink, and then an even lighter pink, so it goes from dark to light values, and it's all in the same little color family right here. And I'm gonna sew them together. And if you're wondering, a jelly roll is 40 2.5-inch strips of fabric, so they're cut 2.5 inches wide, and the length is from selvage to selvage, which is around 42 inches for most stereotypical quilting cotton. So first, I'm gonna lay these out in the color order that I want, and I wanna go from darkest to lightest, or lightest to darkest, whatever works. And then we're gonna sew all 4 of these together. When you get a jelly roll, they are cut using a pinking blade, and so on the side, there are little zigzags. And a lot of people wonder, do I quilt using my 1/4 inch at the edge of those zigzags or right when they end? And it really is up to you as long as you stay consistent. I like to sew right at the edge of those zigzags and count that as part of my seam allowance, but you choose to do what you want. Once these are all sewn together, you can choose whatever way you want to press them. For me, I like to press these guys open, but you can press to one side or the other. It really doesn't matter. But I just like to stitch with a smaller stitch length and then press these guys open, and because I use the smaller stitch length, it's still a strong seam. And now we're gonna cut these out. And to cut this out, I'm gonna line up the bottom of my triangle ruler, my 60-degree triangle ruler, on the bottom of my fabric. And I just wanna make sure my point is right up here, reaching the top. And then I can go ahead and cut down both sides to get my perfect triangle. How cute is that? And that was so much easier than cutting out all these shapes individually and then having to put them together. So for this guy, I am going to do the opposite direction. And what I really love about this ruler and cutter system from TrueCut is the ruler has a track on it, and the cutter has a little guide that hooks into the track. So then I can cut straight lines without my ruler moving or without my cutter veering off left or right, and it just makes life so much easier. Once we've cut our entire strip down, you should have 4 triangles of one kind and then 3 of the other. So for this particular one, I have 4 that has the lighter value as the bigger part and 3 that has the darker value as the other part. And in the end, you'll have 2 little offcuts that you can sew together, use them for something, use them for a scrappy project of some kind, but those you can just put to the side. And then you're gonna repeat the same process with all of the strips of your jelly roll. So you're sewing 4 of them together and then cutting them down into those 7 triangles. It took me a little less than 2 hours, but I am back and we have all of the rainbow triangles cut out, and now we've got to orient them in different ways and figure out how we want to lay out our quilt. So I kind of wish we had a design wall, but I don't, and my knees are not terrible enough yet where I can still do things on the ground. So with the way I initially designed this quilt, I wanted it to be a gradient of color. So starting with my reds and going down to purple and pink. but I kind of want to play around too with the orientation of things. So if I start down here, each of my colors have a darker side and a lighter side. So I want to play around with that. And maybe there will be a fun pattern with all the dark ones touching. This is why we play before we sew. The way I've laid out the quilt now is how I intended for it to be laid out, except I have some extra blocks that don't go perfectly into each row of colors. And so I want to play around with different ideas where we can orient these blocks in different directions to incorporate all of these guys to make this guy slightly bigger and to see the different ways we can play around with a equilateral triangle. But you definitely don't want to see me take the time to lay it all out, so we're just going to jump to when the quilt is laid out in a couple different other ways. Okay, look at this version. All I did was move the longer parts of the triangle out and made these little hexagon shapes. And oh my goodness, I love it. It's got a different vibe than the other one, but you still feel that gradient in it. That's fun. Okay, I'm going to do one more, and I want to do it with all of my colors mixed up. Here's the quilt with random colors thrown everywhere, and this one's so pretty too. And I did the hexagonal style pointing to the middle, but now I was gonna stop here, but now I kind of want to keep going. I'm gonna do one more. I'm gonna keep it like this, but I'm just gonna orient the blocks a different direction and see what happens. With this version, I just changed the orientation by making it kind of the mountain points that we started with originally, but with everything just mixed around. And I'm looking at it on the camera right now, and I love this. Now I want to make 15 quilts in all the different versions there is, but I think we're just gonna go with the original gradient with the little peaks like this, starting from red going to purple like I originally planned. So now that our quilt is laid out how we want it to, we're gonna sew it together. And we're just gonna sew it together in rows. We found the perfect placement for all of these, and now I picked up my entire row and I'm just setting it out just to make sure it's going the way I want it to, which it looks like it is. After I've laid everything out, I can go ahead and sew these guys into individual rows, and I'm just sewing diagonally until the whole row is put together. So I'm gonna fold this second piece on top of the first, and then I can sew these together using my 1/4 inch seam allowance. For this particular quilt, to keep everything organized, just because making a triangle quilt and sewing them together is a little bit new for me, and it's harder for me to keep my pieces organized. I like to sew one piece, I'll open it up, make sure it looks good, and right now I'm not going to press this till the very end because I think I can get away with it. So I'm just going to finger press this little end part right here, and I can take this next piece, fold it right on top. Then I can sew it using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Then I'm going to repeat this entire process of just adding on a triangle until all of my rows are complete. Our first row is together, and when I go to press them, I like to just press it towards this bigger piece of fabric just because it is a little bit easier and the seams are a little bit less bulky. It's just so cute and colorful. I'm so obsessed with this. Now we just gotta sew our rows together. And when I go to sew my rows together, I really want to use pins because I want these points to line up. And I don't need to do pins for all of these seams, but if I can get these points to line up, then usually these seams will line up for the most part. If you really wanted to, you can go ahead and pin every single seam, but I find that a little bit excessive. So I'll just do where my points are going to line up, and maybe this middle seam. Okay, fine, you've convinced me. I want my points to line up, so I'll do that one middle seam and we're good. But truly, if you are a quilter who wants to get more perfect points, pinning is the way to go. There are little tips and tricks for other methods, but pinning is the tried and true. And when we're pinning these together, we just want to make sure we get that diamond shape. And so if you've got that diamond shape, when you open up your seams, then you're good. And we are just going to sew all of this together using our 1/4 inch seam allowance. this particular quilt, where the seams line up, it is a little bit bulky, and so I like to press my seams for my rows open, or technically columns, open, just so that they're a little bit less bulky. For this particular quilt, I like to sew my rows into this like diamond shape first, and then put all of those together until I have my full quilt. As I'm pinning this, I just wanted to tell you that I also wrote a pattern for this, and so it is for free in the description below. It has all the measurements and numbers of everything you'll need to make this quilt, and I even mocked it up in the fabric I'm using today, so if you want to make this exact same quilt, you can. And if you are liking what you see today and want more videos like this, make sure to like and subscribe and hit that bell notification so that you get notified when we post a new video. This quilt is basically done, and it's so cute. If you are intimidated by binding these little points, then you can definitely just cut this off straight across on the top and bottom. It just will make the quilt a little bit smaller, and because we just used one jelly roll, the quilt is already pretty small. So I like to keep them on because I think they're a fun design element, and I like a challenge when I'm binding and I want to learn a new skill. One of my favorite things about this quilt is how easy it is. It looks more complicated, right? It looks like it would be really hard, when in fact we just sewed a bunch of strips together, cut them into our equilateral triangles, and then sewed them together in a specific way that made cute little diamonds. Remember, if you want the pattern, it is for free in the description below, and if you make it, go ahead and tag us so we can cheer you on and see your cute quilts. Thank you so much for hanging out with me and making a quilt in a day, and I'll see you next time.